I'm speaking with Anne Ayalon from Christian Friends of Magen David Adom. Now, first of all, what is Christian Friends of Magen David Adom and what is Magen David Adom?
Okay, Magen David Adom is Israel's national medical services. We provide 99% of the blood to all of the citizens, to everyone who lives in Israel. We are the first responders. We have over 1,000, actually, we have currently 1,300 ambulances deployed around the country. We have the National Blood Services Division as well, with a huge central bank for providing blood to everyone. And it's underground so that we are very well protected. Christian Friends of Magen David Adom is actually a friend society, and we are fundraising for ambulances and motorcycles and MICUs, which are mobile intensive care units. There are armored vehicles, there are boats, there are all kinds of resources that we need to fund, whether it's the equipment and defibrillators or a helicopter or an airplane, because often on the front lines, you need to airlift soldiers, or in the case of this past 2 days, airlift civilians to hospitals. For us, MADA is always on the front lines. They are first responders. And everyone knows who MADA is. And when MADA asks for you to come and give blood, you have thousands pouring into the hospitals, even on these days, pouring into the hospitals to give blood.
Wow. Now, Israel is at war at the moment. Can you tell us about what's happening?
Oh, we were attacked, a vicious attack. Hamas had this very well planned. Hamas is not just a terrorist organization, it really is a terrorist state. And they have great funding from Iran and from Qatar, very wealthy for building up their missiles and their rockets. Currently, there have been over 5,000 rockets sent into Israel, and 250 Israelis have been murdered, many of them in their homes. We have had 50 taken as hostages because in the South, this was a holiday where we celebrate the giving of the Torah, of the Bible. And for us, it is a joyous occasion coming right after the Feast of Tabernacles. And so we had many young people down in the South camping and dancing and celebrating this holiday. And Hamas attacked these and took them as hostages. We had Hamas going into the homes in Sderot, into Israel. They drove trucks and motorcycles through, they tore the fence and entered into Israel and into kibbutzim and small towns, 20 different combat areas in Israel. Such a surprise attack we were most unprepared for. And this is something that we will certainly be looking into. But we now have, with MADA, 1,300 ambulances deployed. Many of them have been moved down to the south to take care of the wounded. And we are also concerned about what's going to happen in Judea and Samaria. And there's also Hezbollah, which is well funded by Iran. And this whole campaign, this attack has been organized, orchestrated by Iran.
And how has Magen David Adom responded to the situation in Israel right now?
Well, they're at the front lines. Magen David Adom works hand in hand with the army, the IDF, with the police, and with the fire departments. There is a centralized command and control. And in that, Israel is very well organized, and Magen David Adom as well. We actually had one ambulance driver, an EMT, emergency medical technician, was murdered while he was driving to Ofakim to help the wounded. So we are mourning his passing at this time.
This is an ambulance driver.
This is an ambulance driver. Yeah.
Wow. So that's very sad for the organization, MDA.
Extremely sad, because he was a diligent, dedicated young man. He left behind a wife and 2 children. And just, each person is part of us here in Israel. We're not a large country. And we know that the concern for each person goes also to their family.
Wow.
And our prayers are with his family these days.
Now, what are they seeing when they're on the front line? Because I've seen videos and pictures on social media that are very horrific. Are they getting to scenes that are very horrific?
Oh, yes, this is exactly what Magen David Adom does. They
Mm,
work hand in hand with the IDF. They're down there.
mm.
And sometimes you have to airlift. Sometimes you have to drive the ambulances to hospitals, even in central Israel. Not that it's that far away. It's maybe only an hour and a half away. As I said, it is a very small country, but they are down there working hand in hand to rescue people.
This was a surprise attack, and so many people have been injured. Are they overwhelmed, or are they able to cope with the situation that's happening at the moment?
Well, we have over 1,200 who are seriously wounded.
Mm,
And we do have many hospitals, very good hospitals, and they are distributed, they are taken to different places depending upon where they will get the best service. The thing about MADA is that everything is organized in advance. The communication is already taking place with the hospital, so they are ready and waiting for the victims when they come. They're not just going into an emergency center. They're actually transported immediately up to the department where they need to be, whether it's for surgery or for an MRI or for x-rays or whatever it's for. They're immediately taken care of.
wow.
And this is a special application that MANA has with all of the hospitals around Israel.
Mm, mm. What sort of injuries are they receiving?
All kinds. Unfortunately, the Hamas was able to go into our division headquarters in the south, the IDF base, because why? We were on holiday. So they sent as many soldiers home. We thought because it was a holiday and that things were seemingly quiet, that it would be safe to do this. So it was not a highly protected base, which it should have always been. So we will have to have an inquiry on what happened really.
Yeah.
But Hamas went in and took all of our arms and our trucks and our tanks. They took control of this headquarters down there and were able then to continue with all of their trucks into the towns and the kibbutzim, the moshavim nearby, and basically shoot people in their homes while they were sleeping. This was taking place at 6:30 in the morning on Shabbat.
Well, is Israel in need of ambulances at the moment? And is that what Christian Friends of Magen David Adom are calling for?
That is exactly what we are calling for, the ambulances and the equipment for the ambulances. I mean, we're talking about stretchers, we're talking about the syringes, we're talking about bandages, basic equipment, but also the ambulances. They get a lot of wear and tear going into these areas. And the ambulance, I can send you photos, or you can go onto our website at www.cfmda.com. That's short for Christian Friends of Magen David Adom.com, and see the pictures of the ambulance that was shot at, where our young Aaron Chaimov is the name of the ambulance driver, where he was shot and killed. And we are actually wanting to dedicate an ambulance in his name. So we're raising funds for that, and we really would appreciate anything that anyone could give. And you can do that by going on to our website.
Well, we'll mention the website address at the end as well. Do these ambulances are collecting blood? Is there a big need for blood at the moment in the country? There's so many people injured and so many people killed.
Yes, thousands of Israelis are going to the hospitals all around the country. This is one thing that Israelis are very responsible for. We understand that this is an existential, life critical need. And so many go every 3 months to give blood.
Mm.
But even those who can't give blood are often volunteering their services in other ways
Are many of your ambulance drivers
to
and
even
workers
help.
volunteers?
Oh, 85% of our staff are volunteers.
Well,
So, for example, when you hear about an ambulance driver being murdered, and he's a volunteer, some are employees, some are volunteers, but the fact of the matter is they have to drive a minimum of 20 hours a month to be considered available to drive the ambulance. You have to give 20 hours a month. And this is in addition to their regular work, their regular jobs. So you know that people really believe in what they are doing. They feel they're making a difference. It gives them purpose in life, that they actually are saving lives. It's a very rewarding and And afterwards, there are often friendships developed from the communication of in the hospital and afterwards.
So these are volunteers, many of them running into a war zone. They're heroes, really.
Absolutely, absolutely. 27,000 volunteers and staff.
Wow.
85% of those are volunteers.
Wow.
But they're very well organized. They're very well disciplined, and they know exactly what their job is, and they fulfill it very professionally.
Yeah. Has this been very humiliating for Israel, what has happened over the last day?
It was a shock for us. And I don't know if I would call it humiliating as much as I would say gravely disappointing. It's such a tragedy that did not need to be. Usually we're much more alert, but it takes us back 50 years ago when we had Yom Kippur on October 6th, the 1973 Yom Kippur War. It was the exact same thing. We were totally unprepared. Our intelligence failed us. And then within 2 hours, Egypt had crossed over the canal and we're coming into Israel. This is very symbolic for Hamas to have done this. And our concern is not for stopping them now. We will stop them. That's not a question. Israelis do not doubt it. But we do need to go into Gaza now and to get our hostages out safely. And we need to demilitarize Gaza. It should be a safe zone for people, but it is not. They use their civilians as shields so that it makes it very hard for us to target a Hamas headquarters or a rocket stockpile, because they'll have it underneath a school or next door to a hospital or even in a mosque. They have no shame on how to use their own civilians, and they will use ours the same way. So we have a great concern in going into Gaza, and it will take us time. But to say that we are humiliated, no. It has brought the country together. It has united us. I don't know if your listeners have been aware of the demonstrations we've had ongoing, almost a even split between what I would call the right and the left, concerning about judicial reform in the country. It's been a big issue, peaceful demonstrations, but nevertheless, very vibrant demonstrations. But now there are none. Everyone has united together to support Israel, to support the government, to support our IDF, and to win this war. It is a war.
I imagine difficult days ahead if they've got to go and get all of these hostages back.
Yes, very difficult. And we have a lot of prayers for the families. We know some of the children. And right now there is a big issue of getting all the names. So on the young people have the social media very active, getting a list of all the people who participated, who is safe, and who has been taken hostage. And these will all be up on the television screen, on the news screen, because for us, each person is important, and we do not leave anyone behind. I don't know if you remember, Gilad Shalit was taken prisoner, hostage, for 5 years, and we traded over 1,000 terrorists to bring him home. That's how important each life is for us.
Now, rockets have been coming across from Gaza into Israel, so I imagine it constantly Israelis are down in their bomb shelter.
Yes, the IDF has requested and the police have requested that if you do not need to go out, please stay home. Everyone has either within their home or very nearby a bunker, and that is the law. And they're all pretty well furnished and quite safe by and large. So unless you have a medical issue or something really urgent, people are staying home. The stores are closed, the gymnasiums are closed, schools are closed. And it is a time really of sitting in front of the news to know what is happening.
What is your prayer?
Yes, a lot of prayer. One of our concerns, of course, has been what are the Palestinian Authority going to do over in Judea and Samaria? Are they going to join Hamas? They are actually enemies. I would say Hamas has a religious ideology to wipe Israel off the map. We cannot exist. The Jews cannot be here. The Palestinian Authority has an ideology that is not religious. It is simply to take all the land. But they are really in a competition for power over the what we would call the West Bank or Judea, Samaria, versus Gaza, which is in the south. Another concern we have is up north on the border of Lebanon and Syria. We have Hezbollah, and Hezbollah is also funded by Iran, and they have 150,000 rockets stockpiled. So I don't know if you heard President Biden of the United States give his speech yesterday. He gave a very strong speech saying to everyone that the United States was fully supporting and standing behind Israel and would support Israel in any endeavor. And this really was I think, a message to Hezbollah not to open another front with Israel, and a message to our other neighbors, because we do live in a very difficult neighborhood. I am grateful that they didn't open all at one time, because we would have been in a much more difficult situation. But our army is now doing targeted infiltrations, and I think that we will turn this around very soon.
The situation is still very, very difficult. What is your prayer for the Holy Land at this moment?
Oh, my goodness. We just pray, we just ask the dear Lord to be with us, to give us strength, to give us courage, to give us compassion for our enemies, but to be strong for our own people. We know that God's will prevail, and we ask for him to be with us and give us guidance in how to get through the situation, how to tell our children and our loved ones that someone has gone missing or is dead. We ask that God will unite us as a Jewish people to be a light for the other nations, to show that we are strong, that we are his people, and that we have morals and values, and that we will live those values even when we are under attack.
Mm-hmm. And what's your website again for people who'd like to know more? Perhaps people would like to give for this ambulance in dedication of the ambulance driver who was killed.
Okay, the organization is Christian Friends of Magen David Adom. So it's www.cfmda.com. It is a nonprofit organization, non-governmental organization. We do not get funds from Israel, from the government. It is all just purely fundraising for ambulances, motorcycles, and equipment.
Okay, and thank you very much. And we pray that you're safe as well.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Paul.
And the Facebook page for Christian Friends of Magen David Adom is facebook.com/ChristianFriendsMDA.